What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're continuing our 3-round mock draft with trades with day 2. Just like the NFL draft, yesterday was day 1, round 1. Today is day 2, rounds 2 and 3. So if you haven't already checked that video out, we'll also be doing a quick little recap right here as well. But if you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Y'all guys know how to use YouTube at this point. Below my face is my board. Below that are all the great ways to get involved with the community, as well as take advantage of our 2 sponsors, Olipop and UnderDog Fantasy. So use those codes, check them out. Also, big shout out to UnderDog because they're a great sponsor. They actually end up being extremely responsive, and they're actually just really good people. So got to give them a double shout out right there. Feel free to use those codes, take advantage of it for yourself, as well as helping out your boy. Let's get right into this. Starting out with the recap. I want to do a quick recap of the trades player-wise first, because we had 2. We had the Eagles trading Haason Reddick to the Atlanta Falcons, as well as Justin Fields going to the Steelers. Haason Reddick to the Falcons because they're looking for an edge rusher. Not really. For a 3rd-round pick, which is what we ended up sending it for, pick 74. Makes sense. Also, that Calvin Ridley trade was actualized, and we're assuming Calvin Ridley does not go back to the Jaguars, so he ends up becoming only a 3rd-round cost. So the Falcons still have their 3rd-round pick, but sent it for Haason Reddick. You know, he's 29 years old, has like multiple years of double-digit sacks, and he still probably has a couple more. So you still get a really top-tier edge rusher. If the Eagles are going to let him walk, then there's a strong chance that they end up only getting a late 3rd for him. So this is a good way of being able to maximize the value there, as well as the fact that we ended up getting some more edge rushing help. But those were the basic ones. Of course, Justin Fields to the Steelers, because those are what the odds are pointing to right now. The Steelers are in a poor position for a quarterback, and it just feels right. Let's get right into this, though. Again, we're going to be just only going over the main trades because you can read. Those of y'all who have auditory issues or are listening to the audio version of this, or visual issues and are listening to the audio version of this, feel free to just go and enjoy the first round on its own. But the Bears traded back with the Saints, ended up getting Olu Fashanu with the Saints move up. The Chicago Bears end up trading back and getting Dallas Turner. There was a small trade. Vegas traded back just a couple spots with Indianapolis, and Indy goes up and selects Jared Verse. And of course, the Raiders end up selecting Nate Wiggins. Jacksonville trades back because we ended up, of course, sending that 3rd-round pick. We ended up sending our comp pick as well, but we ended up acquiring an extra 2nd-round pick from the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners get a Marius Mims. We also had Miami trade back so that Detroit can move up and select Ennis Rakestraw Jr. A lot of hate on Ennis Rakestraw. I can guarantee you the moment more people start digging into his tape, because he's not a box office name. Not many people actually love Missouri the way that I do. Y'all know how much I am a Missouri boy, but I mean, I'm not from Missouri. I just love the players on Missouri for some reason. And his Rakestraw, to me, is a top 10 player. He's better than the corners that even I ended up taking before. But the Lions end up moving up for a superstar corner in Ennis Rakestraw Jr. We ended up seeing a minute move up by 1 spot with the Cardinals to select Tyler Guyton. And of course, the Chiefs moved back 1 spot. Or did they move back 1 spot? I'm tripping. No. So we actually had a double trade down with the Buccaneers. Excuse me. The Buccaneers did a double trade down. Once with the Cardinals, 1 spot to get Tyler Guyton, and then again with the Chiefs so that the Chiefs could get Brian Thomas Jr. And basically, Troy Fautanu ended up being the Dolphins selection through the trade back. Keon Coleman ended up being the selection for the Jags through the trade back. And Graham Barton ended up being the Bucs choice. So we are finally back here at pick 33. We have pick 33 through pick 100 to get through, which is going to be an absolute blast. But it is going to be a lot. So let's get into it. Starting out with the number 33 overall pick, I'm going to be going after a wide receiver. It's the move they're going to make. Like, they already had their media team, great people, by the way. Got to meet them there in Mobile. But, shout out to Dan. I think his name's Shane, as well as, was it Kelsey? I think it might have been. So shout out to those 3. Great media team that they have there. But they were interviewing multiple wide receiver prospects, especially Tez and Xavier, who I believe are from the area. A.D. Mitchell is going to be my choice, though. He's somebody who has been a little bit under the radar because there's so many wide receivers to talk about that not many people really like. We still put him in the drafts relatively high, but there's still a lack of attention given to him. 6'4", 196. The dude has a solid frame, and he is just super buttery smooth with his routes. He ends up making me not like particular corners like TJ Tampa. He's the reason I stopped liking TJ Tampa, and that hurts because I was a really big fan of TJ Tampa. But AD Mitchell is that type of wide receiver one you're looking for. Usually I have Keon Coleman here, but it just made a little bit more sense for the Jaguars at the moment. Pick 34 for the New England Patriots. You got Jordan Morgan here, who could be the tackle y'all are looking for. Went after, I believe, Drake Maye in the first round. Wide receiver also should be on your radar. But looking at the offensive tackles here, you got Kingsley Suamataia, who can play both sides as a mauler in the run game as well. One of the few true tackles that are left. Karan Amajaje also is like a name that you probably haven't heard very much of, but a very talented tackle out of Yale. Usually that is not a sentence that you'll ever hear again. Maybe you will never hear it again ever. But he's super talented tackle. Big fan of him. He's around my 80s right now in my rankings just because of the quad tear. But dude, I'm perfectly fine taking him in round 2. But Kingsley Suamataia is going to be the choice here. I normally go a weapon, but I do think that Tez Walker will be there at pick 68. And pairing him up with Drake Maye, as y'all are much aware of, is everything I love to do for the Patriots. I love having storylines, and that is one of the big ones. Pick 35 for the Arizona Cardinals. We've already drafted Tyler Guyton as well as Marvin Harrison Jr. We are getting Tavondre Sweat here at pick number 35. I don't really think I need to explain it too in depth, but getting an absolute plug in the middle is going to be everything that y'all have ever dreamed for. So you're getting an absolute unit in Tavondre Sweat, essentially being the Jordan Davis for Jonathan, or just for Gannon's defense right there. At pick 36 for the Washington Commanders, drafted, of course, our quarterback Jayden Daniels at number 2. I'm looking right now between Jordan Morgan as well as Braylon Trice as well as not Kingsley Suamataia. We already took him. We got why do I keep saying Princely Umanmielen? That hurts. That's a name we'll be talking about a lot next year. But Karan Amajaje, both names are impossible to pronounce. We're going to go Braylon Trice, though. He is a top 15 prospect on my board. He's going to get reevaluated later this week. So excited to see if he ends up continuing to remain as like the prize darling of mine at the edge rushing position, because I always have one of them that I just am extremely high on compared to the rest. But Braylon Trice is an absolute freak show at 6'4", 274. People complain that he's not a great bender. Not many guys are at that size. So he does it as well as you could probably ask anybody to do it. Pick number 37 for the Los Angeles Chargers. We could end up cutting both. I mean, I think you're going to trade Khalil Mack, but could end up cutting Joey Bosa for cap reasons. The cap situation is not looking too sharp there in LA. Our first round pick was Talise Fuaga, which, yes, it seems like a little bit of a shot out of left field, but he is a fantastic tackle, and I would be very honored to have him on my squad. I am looking at wide receiver here still. I think that Jalen Polk is the next guy who I would take, and it's a little bit early for me in that department. However, when we do look at that corner 2 slot, you know, Renardo Green sings to me. You already have one Florida State corner who's extremely aggressive, great in press. And I think Renardo Green is just the same. He's a boundary corner at 6 foot 190. He's very, very fast in a straight line. I think his change of direction needs a little bit of work, but his IQ is through the roof. He is right now my number 34 player in the class, right behind Quinion Mitchell. So that shows you how much I believe in this player, and y'all need to put him on your radar. I do blend realism with my own board here, but Renardo Green, I think, is a name that, especially after his 40 time, because I think he'll be like in that 4.4 to 4.5 range, not over 4.5. I think that he'll be in that 4.4 range. I did not see him get beat over the top in terms of top end speed. Maybe the 3 cone he passes on, but I think that he actually might end up rising up boards, because this is a guy that he is just so smart. And that's very rare to find at the cornerback position, to just find someone who is that high in terms of his instincts, like that high IQ. Because there's some smart corners in this class. Kamari Lassiter is one of them. But Kamari is 10 pounds lighter and plays like it. Renardo Green plays like he's 200 pounds. I think that my way of talking about Renardo Green is he plays the way that people think TJ Tampa plays. Like big, physical, maybe not the most fluid guy in the world, but very strong. And Renardo Green is exactly that. So great player. Again, going back to Florida State to get another defensive back to be that nice 1-2 punch. And I mean, technically, you also have Derwin James, who like 99.999% sure he was Florida State as well. So you're going to have like a full Florida State backfield right there, which is, it hasn't really served wrong yet. Like they have some good DBs there. I picked 38 for the Tennessee Titans. Went after Joe Alt in the first round, the best possible selection. Look at the wide receivers. Jalen Polk really is that type of weapon that you guys are looking for. People are talking about Rome Odunze in round 1. This would be, I think, getting Jalen Polk and Joe Alt is a lot better of an option than getting Rome Odunze and Karan Amajaje, even though I'm a huge fan of Karan. So we're going to be going Jalen Polk here out of Washington. Just a really fluid mover at 6'2", 204 pounds. Just one of those guys who is a very underappreciated player for how well he played because he was right behind Rome Odunze. And he wasn't as productive as not Jalen Polk. Excuse me, that is him. That is his name. But Jalen McMillan. So we got Jalen Polk here going to the Titans a little bit earlier than maybe some people would take him, but I think he is phenomenal. The Giants. So we drafted Malik Neighbors in round number 1. Still looking at Bo Nix. You got one more year of guaranteed money. And Bo Nix is a full year younger than Michael Penix, but Bo Nix can actually take this offense and continue to run with it, both literally and metaphorically. He has all the strengths that Daniel Jones has, but has a little bit more in the tank. And I think that is a differentiator. I think that's a big difference maker. So you could talk about offensive line here, but I just do fully believe that Bo Nix belongs in New York, unless they end up drafting Rome Odunze in round 1, which then you get Michael Penix because that connection was ridiculous. So I'm actually going to go Bo Nix here. It's a second round pick. It's worth taking a swing on at least for competition. And I really do believe Bo Nix could end up being a really damn good quarterback. Like he lost a little bit of my confidence in him at the Senior Bowl because on day 1, he really did struggle, did some moves that I really didn't appreciate. His mechanics were a little bit off, but he did end up rebounding, and that is respect worthy. Pick number 40 for the Washington Commanders. Looking at Jordan Morgan still on the board, it might just be worth taking him at this point. But I do see value in Karan Amajaje being a true offensive tackle. He won't be able to play right away, but, I mean, he can. And I don't think he'll be able to reach his potential if he plays right away. But you do have some veterans on the team that could end up coaching him, and he has great athleticism. That's going to be a harsh take of mine, is that Karan will go before Jordan Morgan. But at pick 41 for the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Morgan's the guy who I'm thinking about. In the first round, we ended up taking Cooper DeJean, which is, I went on a spiel as to why or how good of a pick I think that is. It's essentially the best pick I could imagine for the Packers. But I think this is fantastic. It's tackles that end up, being able to move inside. I actually think Dominic Pooney fits perfectly with what this system is looking for. I could end up trading back here. To be fair, I'm really we don't need a lot more in terms of draft capital. Dominic Pooney fits a little bit more than Jordan Morgan, though, because he actually showed adequacy at center. And he showed out more than Jordan Morgan did at the Senior Bowl. I don't think Jordan Morgan fits the Packers as well as Dominic Pooney does. So I'm going to actually move back. Even though I said we don't really need the capital, still going to be moving back here. And looking at a team that actually might want Michael Penix, I'm looking at the Raiders right here, who will probably want to jump the Falcons. We already have the Vikings, who have drafted J.J. McCarthy, which that was kind of like the whole entire point of that first video. Blew my mind, but we have the Falcons still looking for a quarterback, as well as the Raiders. Raiders just cut Jimmy G today for using Blue Chew, the performance-enhancing drug. I think that probably is going to be the move. Of course, we could talk about, we've already traded up once with the Saints here, so I doubt that they'll have the draft capital to make a big move. But the Raiders really need to make a move for a quarterback. I think that Kirk Cousins, we need to factor him in. I know a lot of y'all have been talking about that, so I'm actually going to have him going to the Falcons in this instance because it's between the Falcons and the Steelers, and the Steelers just got their quarterback, so it kind of makes sense. But the Raiders are going to make this small trade up. They traded back once. They're going to trade up now. So the Vegas Raiders are moving up. Again, 3 spots, super minute. We ended up getting that 118 pick from Indy. That actually might be what I send for this. So essentially, you're going to get both the guys that you want for pretty much free. So we're going to send pick 118 to move up 3 spots. Maybe I could have added a little bit more in there from the Green Bay side, but who cares? I'm looking at it, though, as Michael Penix Jr. That is going to be the quarterback tax for y'all. Of course, you ended up moving back in the first round and still selected Nate Wiggins. So Michael Penix, Nate Wiggins, nice 1-2 punch. At pick 42 for the Minnesota Vikings, we need to go after an edge rusher. Great thing is, there's some good ones who are left on the board. I could actually end up trading back here and still getting some really, really good players. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get a 3rd round pick out of this, or at least some extra draft capital nonetheless. With Jordan Morgan on the board, who's a very athletic interior offensive lineman who can play tackle, I am looking at the New York Giants here, who don't have that many issues. We've already gone wide receiver. We've already gone quarterback. They do value offensive line a lot. And again, Dominic Pooney, that's a guy who I think that should be given a little bit more credit than maybe Jordan Morgan does. But Jordan Morgan feels more like a New York Giant or a Jacksonville Jaguar than what I'll probably like to admit. So in the first round, the Jags ended up getting Keon Coleman and ended up moving back and getting a good amount of draft capital. I think unfortunately, the Jags don't really have that 3rd round pick, and the New York Giants do. So that is why we're going to be making a move with the New York Giants. They have something a little bit more valuable to the Vikings. I think that we're going to be trading pick 109 and 42 for 70 and 47. The Vikings do have a good amount of later picks, so I think that we actually might sweeten the deal, so to speak, with something a little bit higher, maybe pick 157. We could even end up tossing in pick 145. I like that 50% chance to be accepted territory. I know that's not ideal for the Giants fans out there, but when you do look at it, there's not many larger needs on this team except for, Jordan Morgan, you could be replacing Evan Neal. So we could think of it that way. I'm not going to necessarily kick Evan Neal to the curb just yet, but I know the value at interior offensive line will be solid at pick 47, but not elite. So maybe we could actually end up tossing in pick number 130. We are going to be losing quantity of picks, but we still end up retaining the quality right there. So we will end up pushing this trade on through. The Vikings end up moving back 5 spots and ended up getting a couple getting that 3rd round pick as well. The New York Giants then select Jordan Morgan, tackle/guard out of Arizona. He's just the best offensive lineman on the board, so we are going to take full advantage of that. Pick 43 for the Atlanta Falcons. We've already gone after our star wide receiver in Rome Odunze. This is a great spot for an edge rusher, and looking at the edge rushers available, I feel like Chop Robinson has the same pluses and minuses in terms of overall impact on the game that Byron Young did last year. Not unbelievable push, not unbelievable consistency, but the high-level play and the size to speed ratio is there. And Chop Robinson's a freak. I really do want to see how Raheem Morris ends up using Chop Robinson there. Already telegraphed what I was going to do for the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to be going Dominic Pooney, who played unbelievable levels of center, guard at the Senior Bowl, and also has tackled. This is, by definition, what a Packers offensive lineman draft pick is. Get a tackle that it can also play center. And obviously it worked very well with Zach Tom, who I love Zach Tom. And Dominic Pooney is going to get a full evaluation very soon, so we'll see how much I love him. But he's on a fast track. Let's just say he's on a fast track to be a 2nd round pick. Pick number 45 for the Chicago Bears. We ended up drafting our star quarterback in Caleb Williams, as well as an edge rusher in Dallas Turner. This was via a trade back. This was technically via a double trade back. We were supposed to have pick 52, and because this is the Justin Fields trade, and then we traded once again with the New Orleans Saints. So we have their pick that was from Denver. Now, I do think that you could actually move back from this spot once more. I just don't really feel the value is unbelievable here. With all the star edge rushers on the board as well. You got Darius Robinson here, who's an absolute freak show. I think that you could even have Darius Robinson be this pick and pair him up with Dallas Turner and Montez Sweat. That'd be a ridiculous trio. But there are teams that are looking for a supremely talented edge rusher. It could even trade back up with the Saints here. But dark horse team is going to be the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins should be at least on the radar for a move up. I'm looking at other teams that might want it, and technically the Vikings, but we just gave away a good amount of our draft capital on day 3 to be able to have our day 2 picks. So looking at other teams that could be in the market for an edge rusher, I think the Lions could get aggressive once again. You do have some ridiculously talented edge rushers, but with Jonah Ellis on the board, I think that he might slip to that spot. I was trying to justify a move back. I don't think there's a team that's going to bite. So center, wide receiver, quarterback, those are the 3 positions I usually like to look at. We have yet to address wide receiver, though. So looking at the options available, Xavier Legette's actually really damn solid at this point. I think that he goes a little bit under the radar because he ended up not doing too well at the Senior Bowl. But he's still a very talented player, great size at 6'1", 220, and that's a good compliment to have to DJ Moore. He doesn't have to play the wide receiver 1 role, and he thrives in a wide receiver 2 role. So we can end up waiting for that center. Pick 46 for the Indianapolis Colts ended up moving up, selecting Jared Verse in round number 1. Here we are also looking at that wide receiver room. Could look at Ricky Pearsall, Jermaine Burton. Those are some really good players. Malachi Corley as well. I have him comped to a poor man's version of Rashee Rice. A little bit shorter too, though, but that's okay. But I do think defensive back should be at least on the market. When you do have Cam Kinchens and Kalen Bullock on the board, I think that can't go unnoticed. You're still looking for that free safety, and I think Cam Kinchens, I've never taken Cam to the Colts. It's a good, unique way to be able to add a new player that still makes a ton of sense. At pick 47 for the Vikings, we are going to be drafting an edge rusher here. Ended up trading back in that pick 70, and we're going to be selecting Darius Robinson, edge rusher out of Missouri, 286. So it's a little bit heavier than the guys that they've usually brought in before, but this dude has unbelievable speed to power, and he ended up being an absolute freak at the Senior Bowl. Just wasn't the best on tape before that. At pick 48 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, we're going to end up getting Christian Haynes here. I thoroughly believe that the tackle versatility of Jordan Morgan does justify that move up, just in case y'all are wondering. Christian Haynes is a phenomenal prospect. I just think that he did not prove to have the versatility that maybe I thought he would. He ended up moving down my board a little bit to being a top 20 player, but Christian Haynes fits a bulky system, in my opinion, just a little bit better than what they have there in New York. At pick number 49 for the Cincinnati Bengals, tight end, proper move. I think that's very fine. Defensive interior with Chris Jenkins, though, that's where it's at. 305 pounds, lockdown run defender who has pass rushing upside. That's everything you can ask for. In the first round, we ended up, of course, getting J.C. Latham, but we end up going Chris Jenkins here. At pick 50 for the Philadelphia Eagles, I've been trying to get Edgerrin Cooper to go earlier, but it's hard to, especially since he's 230. Brett Coleman ended up saying he's similar to Sean Weatherspoon. I don't remember enough about Sean Weatherspoon to confirm or deny that, but wanted to add that little tidbit in there. Edgerrin Cooper's built for a Vic Fangio system where he is on the line of scrimmage and can play multiple roles, and he's going to be phenomenal. Also, with the departure of Hassan Reddick, this guy is going to be able to compete. So you have Leatu Latu who can kick inside or even play on that outside, and now you have Edgerrin Cooper as well. At pick 51 for the Los Angeles Rams, Kamari Lassiter is very intriguing, but we got Quinyon Mitchell there in round number 1. So thinking about it, it's ridiculous the amount of talent you could have if you go Kamari, but I think Quentin Lake's taking that slot role. So thinking of the better moves for the franchise, offensive line, the guys who are available, people do love Patrick Paul quite a bit. So could be the move that they go after. I'm not there yet, so I am going to actually get the partner in crime to Byron Young and Chris Braswell. He did not have a fantastic week in Mobile, so he's going to be slipping down a little bit more, but people still know he is a very, very good player. At pick 52 for the New Orleans Saints, I actually might end up trading back here because we really do lack the picks required. We ended up moving up for Olu Fashanu, which is awesome, but we still need to be able to move back. Kamari Lassiter is available, and I think he is the last of the very talented cornerbacks on the board, unfortunately, except for like Dwight McLaughlin and Cam Hart. But Kamari is going to be looked at far greater than those two. Looking at teams that might be in the mood to move up for someone who is extremely smart in space, maybe not the most physical. I mean, the Lions, we've already done that type of move before. I could see the Jaguars trying to acquire another Georgia defensive back, but this fits more into that Eric Stokes mold than Tyson Campbell. So I don't think Balky is going to be in the mood for that. Also, no day 3 pick. So other teams that could be in the market, I mean, technically the Chargers, but we're starting to look way too far down the board. Like, he's not that coveted of a player, to be honest. He's not that coveted. We could try to see a team that is looking for that left tackle because there's not really any more that are on the board. Maybe Christian Jones, but like you're really starting to stretch it for a starting quality tackle. And I mean, you could see teams even like the Dolphins. They could be looking for their guy. I could see the Texans trying to jump the Dolphins for a tight end here, but I think they have bigger issues and bigger fish to fry than just going and forcing a need there. But Patrick Paul, I mean, hell, could even go. I'm not going to go Buffalo. Buffalo doesn't need him that badly, but you could technically even see the Ravens wanting to move up for their own tackle here. Not seeing enough of a need. I think that, unfortunately, you have to have the right value and the right players on the board for a trade up. And there just simply isn't a player that's a can't miss type of guy. So we're going to make the most out of this situation. Defensive interior wise, you got some really good players, but you could wait till day 3 for a guy like Mason Smith and be happy. Honestly, you could be perfectly happy with that. I do think it's still on the board for us, but I am going to look at the safety core. If I'm going to get my best bang for my buck, I'm going to go Kalen Bullock here. He's going to be a superstar in a year. You have 1 year left on both Maye as well as Honey Badge. So you're going to be able to flip these picks around and be able to get a really talented player in Kalen Bullock. You got your cornerstone developmental offensive piece and defensive piece with rounds 1 and 2. At pick 53 for the Miami Dolphins, we ended up going in the first round with a trade back to select Troy Fautanu. Now, defensive interior, it is available and it is within striking range, but tight end, Jatavian Sanders. Get a receiving weapon, continue building that offense, make it easier for Tua. I have an eyelash in my eye, and it is making me go bazonkers right now. At pick 54 for the Philadelphia Eagles, though, hard to pass on Kamari Lassiter. We've now gone after 2 more defensive pieces, might go after a third here, but I mean, I wish Ladd McConkey were on the board. I could end up waiting, though. I mean, I personally feel fine going after Malachi Corley in round number 3. Again, that pick 74 went to Atlanta. Forgot to mention that when I ended up going after Chop Robinson, it made even more sense to me to have him sit a year behind Hassan Reddick. And then, of course, they're going to get a compensatory pick for when Hassan leaves. So Chop will be taking over that role. Had to mention that there as well. Kamari Lassiter can play the slot. He also can play safety. That's what I love about him. He's super duper smart, and he's a Georgia corner. It's not the main reason why I'm doing this, but we are actually going to go after Kamari Lassiter. The value is just too damn good. You do have someone who could flex as a safety until Sydney's ready, and then you can also have him play the slot, and he can play boundary if you want him to. I just think he's a little bit more on the light side, so you wouldn't want him following someone like CeeDee Lamb. Pick number 55 for the Cleveland Browns. So I think defensive interior, proper move here. I don't know why people think that you need to get another big defensive interior. Like, if Devondre Sweat's here, I still am not going to take him. I'd probably going to go after Leonard Taylor because you're not going to use him as a nose. And Leonard Taylor was unbelievably efficient as a 3 tech or even as a 5 tech. So I believe Leonard Taylor to be the proper choice at this point. I think wide receiver is also a good move, but Leonard Taylor actually can end up being one of those supreme freaks at their position. Should have been a top 15 pick in the draft if used correctly by Miami and if in shape. So hopefully that doesn't get the best of him because it would be a great what if story. And I just hope that it is just a great story and not something that actually comes to fruition. Pick 56 for the Dallas Cowboys. We ended up going in the first round for a defensive interior, Jerzon Newton. Looking at the offensive tackles available, I could still go Patrick Paul, but deep down, I kind of want to go Christian Jones for them. I don't think I'm going to get either, but I don't know if either can start for this team. I do know Zach Frazier can start for this team. So let's go defensive and offensive interior back-to-back rounds. Zach Frazier is a very talented center out of West Virginia. I think there's some good offensive interiors in this class, but I'd be reaching for a true starter at that pick 87, and I'd prefer to get a guaranteed starter than reach on two kind of starters. So that's my logic there. At pick 57 for the Green Bay Packers, we have addressed interior offensive line / tackle. I mean, whatever the hell you want Dominic Pooney to be. And then defensive back, because he's not just a straight corner. I could see TJ Tampa being a very likely option for this team. With your new defensive coordinator in the house, he's very much focused on the press and the man, and I think TJ Tampa can do that very, very well. I could also see Dwight McLaughlin being able to do that very well, but I prefer him in an off-coverage system. Cam Hart as well. So I'm actually going to go TJ Tampa here to play that boundary corner role. I think that his talents should just not go to waste. In reality, he will be a second-round pick. I'm not that high on him, but this is also a system that I think he'll work quite well in. At pick 58 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we ended up trading back twice and ended up getting interior offensive line. Could end up getting Jonah Ellis here. That wouldn't be a bad move by any stretch, but I also want to look. I mean, edge is not a bad position to go, but this is also a position I trust for them to get on round 3, because there's some good dudes who will probably be there at 89. There's my dyslexic ass reading 58 wrong, but I think you could also sneakily go after a defensive back at this point. Could go 2 interior offensive linemen as well. I'm not going to do that. Wide receiver with Tez Walker could be someone who you have for the long run. Johnny Wilson, not a bad idea to train under, not a bad idea to have him be Mike Evans' understudy. I'm actually going to go a linebacker here, though, because I thoroughly believe Junior Colson could be somebody extremely special if guided by some really special linebackers. I just don't know if he has the necessarily athleticism, though. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to test my theory. I really like the idea of Johnny Wilson being an understudy to Mike Evans for 1 year. I know Mike Evans is up for a contract, but that doesn't mean you won't bring him back. Johnny Wilson could also play some reps at tight end because he's 240 pounds, and he's just a really good versatile piece that I think is going to be intriguing to quite a few DCs. But that leaves Houston Texans to go Junior Colson here at pick 59 because they need linebacker pretty damn desperately. In the first round, we ended up going Byron Murphy, the second out of University of Texas. Now you get 2 key defensive pieces in your development for a Super Bowl run. Pick 60 for the Buffalo Bills. We ended up going after a wide receiver, most likely in Troy Franklin, and that is correct. Now, I do want to get that defensive back piece. Nubin will be going high enough. I'm not very high on Tyler Nubin, but I do, again, blend my board with realism. So, it is understandable why they would go after him. Doesn't mean I like it. I do think the linebackers, they've been dealing with injuries, though, so I don't know if they would go after an injury-prone player in Peyton Wilson. That's what kind of sucks there. But we'll actually go after Tyler Nubin. I know a lot of people will be fine with that pick. I am just much lower in Tyler Nubin than the consensus. Pick 61 for the Detroit Lions. Talked about it earlier. We're going to go Jonah Ellis here. We moved up for Ennis Rakestraw Jr. in the first, and we're going to get Jonah Ellis, who is the son of a former first-round pick and Luther Ellis from a couple decades ago. So Jonah Ellis, fantastic edge rusher, 246, unending motor. The dude's a beast. Great compliment to be in that rush role next to Aiden Hutchinson. Pick number 62 for the Baltimore Ravens. Went after Ladd McConkey in round number 1, which some people have their issues with, understandably so. But the more you watch Ladd McConkey, the more you realize he could just be an Odell Beckham Jr. type 2. Or round 2. At this point, we've already gone after our star wide receiver. I do think running backs should start coming off the board eventually. And this team doesn't have an RB1. They just don't. Trey Benson could be that type of guy that I really do trust. Across from, what's his name? Keaton Mitchell, because he's not a Trey Benson's not a home run hitter. He is kind of like your own like Le'Veon Bell contact balance type who's very good with vision. Keaton Mitchell is your home run hitter. And this is the type of team to invest a high pick in that because they want to give Lamar the best possible chance to succeed. I don't really see much better in terms of options at the moment, so we will be going Trey Benson. This will very much be a trade back, though, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've already gone after Christian Haynes as well as Keon Coleman. Looking at the options available, Patrick Paul is still here. Teams that need a left tackle should be in the mood to move up. And I could see the Patriots being a team that likes that. I could also see them being a team that feels a little bit of pressure to move up and select their star wide receiver, but there's not that many teams that would be really targeting Devontae Walker. I am seeing the Jets here, though, and getting Patrick Paul could be a good move for a team that just drafted a tight end rather than a wide receiver, or rather than a tackle. So with the final potential starting tackle left on the board, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of the Jets. So we're going to be making this move back. And I could end up getting future draft capital, but that doesn't fully make sense. I think pick 112 will suffice. The Jets really don't have that many holes that they won't address in free agency. And this could be one of them. But Patrick Paul is a longer-term investment. It's a very, very tough position to pay for a proper starter. So it's a good option. You get Brock Bowers and Patrick Paul. Don't overthink it. Pick number 64 for the Kansas City Chiefs. We ended up getting a star wide receiver. Where we go? We moved up and got Brian Thomas. Forgot about that part. Yeah, so that's why we don't have a third round pick. But, I mean, you got Ruka Roro here. I don't think there's that many defensive interiors that comp to Ruka Roro's talent level at 295, pure muscle. There's just not many other positions I think I'd need to go for the Chiefs. Cornerback, sure. You could try to continue developing that corner core. But, nah. Let's not do that. Let's get a really talented defensive interior who is still top 40 on my board in Ruka Roro. Pick 65 for the Panthers. Got our wide receiver. I think Adisa Isaac's spectacular. I don't know how much longer you're going to really trust the other Penn State edge in Yetur Gross-Matos. That is assuming you end up keeping Brian Burns. So Adisa Isaac is a really, really solid bet. Don't overthink it. Get just a really solid player. Adisa Isaac out of Penn State. Pick 66 for the Arizona Cardinals. We've gone our star wide receiver in MHJ, our star right tackle in Tyler Guyton, and then we've also gone our star defensive interior in Tavondre Sweat. So at this selection, because we do have 3 third-round picks, I think corner still is a big position to target. And I think that Dwight McLaughlin is perfect for a Gannon system. He has the physicality for it. He can play off coverage. Like he's a very smart player as well. Good ball skills. This is the guy that you want as that sneaky day 2 pick that ends up being well worth a day 1 pick. Pick 67 for the Washington Commanders. So we've already gone after offensive tackle, edge rusher, as well as quarterback for him. I actually might go offensive tackle again because I really like Christian Jones. He's been able to show that he can play right tackle or left. So that's the big kicker right there. And he's very mobile, one of the bigger risers out of the Senior Bowl. Big respect to him. He actually wasn't an issue all year long either for his squad. So I'm actually going to go Christian Jones here, star tackle out of Texas. Pick 68 for the New England Patriots, another guy who I would have loved for New England, but I told y'all about it earlier. We're going to go Devontae Walker and pair him up with Drake Maye. We already have our star tackle, we have our star quarterback, and now we have his very own super weapon there in Tez Walker. Pick 69 for the Los Angeles Chargers. We have already gone after Talise Fuaga as well as our star corner 2 in Renardo Green. I already know people are going to have an issue with that, but that's okay. I love y'all anyways. I think this is potentially the right time to actually go Mikey Sainer still and put him in the slot. So we're going to play a completely different role than Renardo Green. And I actually love this, especially if you're going to start getting rid of pass rushers. You're going to want to start using Mikey as that type of guy that you do have blitzing and causing more pressure. I think this is a guy who will end up he might be looked at a little bit unfavorably because he's played 2 years only as a defensive back, former wide receiver, still is not processing the game very well, but this dude is he's a freaking firecracker. I would love to have him on my team. Like similar to Romo Dunze, where I don't always see 100% of the translatable talent. The mentality is something that I fall in love with, and we'll see as time goes on because I'm still developing my skills as a scout. But we'll see how much that really does impact the trajectory of someone's career. I think it's pretty significant because if players do energize a locker room and they end up continuing to work on themselves, I think that's a bigger differentiator than just day one talent. I think that's not a big stretch, but it certainly could be. Maybe I might be overvaluing it more than it should be. So there you go. There's my own self-analysis right there. But at pick number 70 for the Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to trade out of this spot. I don't think there's that many more receivers worth well, there's some good receivers left on the board. I was going to try to get a team to move up for Jermaine Burton, but it's very difficult to convince a team to want to do that. Looking at the other options available, edge rusher Marshawn Nealon's going to excite some people. Like, he has a really good motor. Seen some clips of him on Twitter and watched him in person at the Senior Bowl. He's a good player. Xavier Thomas, he's just a little bit older, a little bit smaller. It's a guy who I think would be great for the Vikings, but I am going to push that a little bit down the line. I'm trying to get a team to move up right now. Quarterback-wise, don't really see. Like, Michael Pratt could be taken at this point. I'm not going to do that just yet. And I like Michael Pratt. Could look to replace Dalton Reisner if he ends up leaving. Cooper Beebe is a great choice at that. In fact, I think a team should be moving up for Cooper Beebe because this dude's phenomenal. He's a really good guard, and I just haven't been respecting him the way I should. I could see, I'm trying to see what teams I actually really want to move up with here for Cooper because he's really damn good. Like, what team needs a guard? That's the real question. There's not that many teams that really need guard that badly to where they want to move up like that. I can actually see the Dolphins getting a little bit more aggressive here, though, because we ended up doing our move back. I think, why is this Minnesota's pick? I'm tripping. I'm tripping as to why. Oh, did we do that? I'm tripping. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. But essentially, we're going to be making a move up here with the Dolphins. We're going to give back Minnesota their pick, essentially. So the Dolphins are going to be moving up 3 spots. Like, we do need to start replenishing some type of pick value here. Pick 155 will suffice. It's a 3-pick jump. So we'll offer this trade. We'll see if it gets accepted. Awesome sauce. And the Dolphins move up because they've already drafted 1 interior offensive lineman, but they have 3 up for a contract. That's ridiculous. Sometimes you just have to go after the best player available. And Cooper Beebe is well worth it. Would have loved him here for the Cardinals. Ended up getting jumped for that reason. But we've already gotten our star right tackle, defensive interior, corner, and wide receiver. Still think we could target interior offensive line. And, you got Cedric Van Pran here, Bo Limmer, both of them phenomenal players. I actually might go Bo Limmer here. And I know not many people are huge fans of Bo Limmer, but I am. He's a really, really talented guard who has his issues at center, but he definitely showed that he is worth a day 2 pick, I think, at the Senior Bowl. He got trucked on his ass, but he had some good reps in there, and that's worth developing around. Bo Limmer out of Arkansas, the selection there. At pick 72, Jaguars have gone after their interior offensive lineman as well as their star wide receiver since they ended up trading their 3rd-round pick right here to the Atlanta Falcons as part of that Calvin Ridley deal. I remembered it this time. We love that. So, defensive back-wise, I actually think that Cam Hart fits this team to a T. Very aggressive, high motor. That's exactly the guy who I want. So we're going to be going after Cam Hart, corner out of Notre Dame. Pick 73 for the Vikings. We're going to go back to the edge rushing room. We moved back, got a good pick, ended up getting proper value for Xavier Thomas here. I wanted to push him down the board a little bit more. 245 pounds, a little bit on the lighter side, but he has actually been up to 265. Unbelievable mobility. He's been a guy who I've actually continued to mock to the Vikings since, I think 2021. This has been a guy where I've been putting him I think the way too early 2021 mock. I put him to the Vikings. That was my first thing I did. So this is going to be something I continue to push through until it comes to fruition. Had a great Shrine Week. Ended up popping off because he has great mobility, but you pair that up with Darius Robinson, and that's going to be a ridiculous 1-2 punch. You got lightning and thunder there. Pick 74 for the Eagles. We've gotten Edgerrin Cooper. We've gotten Kamari Lassiter. We've gotten Latu. Now is the time to get that wide receiver 3. I think Jermaine Burton or even Malachi Corley deserve to be in the running for this. I really like Malachi Corley because he essentially will be, the guy who takes a screen for a touchdown, but I think Jermaine Burton's value is just too good right now. Feel free to debate that. Like, I could actually still go Malachi Corley here because completely different build, 5'10", 215. Like, it says 5'11", 210, but same thing. Like, short and stubby versus 6 foot 195, which not crazy differential, but they do play completely differently. I'm still going to go after Jermaine Burton. He's been a top 32 player for me for a very long time, and he's just a very talented receiver to be that wide receiver 3 mold. Pick 75 for the Bears. So we've gone after wide receiver with Xavier Legette. We've gone after quarterback Caleb Williams, and we've gone after defensive line at edge rusher with Dallas Turner. Now's the time to go after a center. We got Cedric Van Pran and Drake Nugent on the board. Cedric Van Pran is a little, like 1 or 2 spots higher than Drake Nugent on my board. So we're going to go after SVP. Pick 76 for the Denver Broncos. So we have already gone after our star corner in Terrion Arnold. And yes, you still need edge rusher. I totally agree. Javon Solomon is someone who doesn't get enough love at all. This dude is just someone you don't see very often. Austin Booker will probably be selected sometime as well. He had a really good Senior Bowl week. But I do love Javon Solomon. I think he's somebody who deserves some props and deserves a little bit more love than he does. This team needs edge rusher. He's going to be a guy to bring in. Pick 77 for the Raiders. We moved up for Michael Penix. We moved back and ended up selecting Nate Wiggins. So we're in a good spot. I think offensive line-wise, you could actually go and bring Zach Zinter in or Christian Mahogany. Both those guys are really, really good run blockers. Could look and develop Blake Fisher here. I just don't know if this team's in the mood to develop players at the moment. Probably want to get that day one impact. And the defensive interiors, though, you got Braden Fiske here. This is a team that is notorious for drafting dudes on day 3. Really solid defensive interiors on day 3, might I add. So I'm going to wait on that one. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to return. And for that reason, I think you could go Audric Estime, Marshawn Lloyd, or Bucky Irving. All 3 have their respective strengths and weaknesses. Marshawn Lloyd's a home run hitter with fumbling issues. Audric Estime is the all-around guy. And then Bucky Irving is the missed tackle forced machine. I personally really love Bucky Irving. I do. I know it's not a flashy pick because he's not the guy who's going to run 4.2, but he's just somebody who's going to be reliable. And I love Bucky Irving. He's been a top 64 player for me since the beginning. He's number 54 on my board and probably should be even higher. Pick number 78 for the Seattle Seahawks. We need a linebacker for this team. It's no surprise. I mean, multiple linebackers up for a contract. Jeremiah Trotter is here. Peyton Wilson is here. Tommy Eichenberg, Defwan Olufosho. Tons of good options. I think Peyton Wilson is that true Mike you're looking for. And if you can pair him up with a Defwan Olufosho, which we should by pick 81, that's going to be a foundation for success. Peyton Wilson, if he can stay healthy, is the best or second best linebacker in the class. Just the question is health. Pick 79 for the Falcons. So we got technically 2 edge rushers because we traded our 74th pick for Hassan Reddick, but we also got Chop Robinson to be his eventual successor. And then we also got Rome Odunze. So fix the edge as well as the wide receiver issue. Could go for that corner 2 spot right now with, you could technically look even at Kalen King. He struggled. Kalen Carson and Jarvis Brownlee's too light, but I mean, there's not many other options. We could go wide receiver, though. I mean, looking at the choices, I think there's a really, really good spot for Xavier Worthy on this lineup. Roman Wilson as well. You could try to put Ricky Pearsall in there. Jalen McMillan, you could pair him back up. Ooh. We could trade back and still get Jalen McMillan. See, he could actually work in the slot and pair back up with Rome Odunze. That's a really nice 1-2 punch. Looking at the best choices available that might be a little bit on the valuable side. Could look at the quarterback position. I mean, hell, this team should be at least in the market for Michael Pratt. But I do see Kalen Carson here, and he might be one of the last draftable corners in day 2. Like, Kalen King is starting to stretch it because he just had an awful week. Awful week there at the Senior Bowl. But, I mean, Kalen Carson has that perfect build. And I just, again, am really excited about the Niners. You got, 3 picks here? You don't need all 3 of them. So I'm going to be moving up with the San Francisco 49ers. I think that it possibly does cost multiple of their compensatories for this, and that does seem about proper value. Like maybe you get a 241 tossed in there as well. Let's see if we roll the dice. The trade was accepted, but I think the Falcons right here at 96, that is literally your quarterback and wide receiver selection. It's not a team that really needs to hit on the value at the moment, but the Niners moved up for Amarius Mims in round 1. They're going to be aggressive again and get Kalen Carson here in round number 3. Pick number 80 for the Cincinnati Bengals. So we've gotten defensive interior as well. Did we go defensive interior? I'm tripping. We did. We got Chris Jenkins as well as right tackle. So I think tight end might need to be starting to move up a little bit more. I really like Ben Sinnott. I think he might be taken day 2. Like, I wasn't even that high on Ben Sinnott, and I'm high on Ben Sinnott compared to the consensus now at this point. I do think Xavier Worthy might be like worth bringing on. Tag T. Higgins, bring Xavier Worthy in the slot. He's a little bit on the lighter side, obviously, but what's the risk at this point? We're going to go Xavier Worthy. Good player, like a really good player. I have no hate, no quarrel with Xavier Worthy. He's just a little bit on the smaller side, and there's a lot of good receivers in this class. There's more desirable builds. Xavier Worthy doesn't have really one marquee trade. Maybe he's a good deep threat, but you still have to factor in all the other factors with all these really good wide receivers. Like, not many teams are looking for just one deep threat early on. Pick 81, though, for the Seahawks, we have already drafted our interior offensive lineman in Jackson Powers Johnson, as well as our linebacker Peyton Wilson. I still might go after another one because I love the idea of a Def 1 Olafosho. He's been actually a top 64 guy for me for a while, or top 70 guy. As you can see, as I scroll down, I'm still editing my board right now to show y'all that players are falling. But I actually think I'm going to go Tyron Hopper here out of Missouri because he's going to be a hybrid edge rusher. That's my goal for him. He's 230 pounds, but this dude, he's honestly quite solid in coverage. He's awful at tackling, but this is a team that I think could reteach him the fundamentals. His speed is off the charts. His pass rushing ability is as good as I've seen from a linebacker. So I think that's going to be a coveted ability there in Seattle. Pick 82, from the Indianapolis Colts. We've already addressed defensive back last round, didn't we? We did with Cam Kitchens. Love that. So we got Cam Kitchens as well as Jared Verse. It's a pretty good fit. That's a pretty good group of dudes right there. Might go Dwayne Carter. Jalen Carter. Words are tough today. But you are looking to potentially end up replacing DeForest Buckner. He has one more year left on his contract. There's no guarantee that he'll be back. McKinley Jackson at 320 pounds is worth it. He really is. You already got your defensive back help. I mean, maybe we can go after a wide receiver here and help out the offense a little bit. And, I mean, it makes sense if you do want to go after that. Ricky Pearsall's not a bad choice at all. Actually, we'll go Ricky Pearsall. I think it's more likely, especially since he also comes from Florida. I think it's more likely that we end up at least having one of these picks help out Anthony Richardson than just going pure defense. Pick 83 for the Rams. We've already gone after edge rusher Chris Braswell, as well as corner with Quinion Mitchell. I do think we could go defense one more time with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. here, or you could even go Dwayne Carter, for example, but I'm actually going to go a Def 1 Olufosho. I love a Def 1. Honestly, I wanted him to my Steelers, so that shows you again. My Steelers bias is absolutely zero, but a Def 1 Olufosho is a phenomenal player. Very underrated. He's someone who, again, was considering taking as the second linebacker there to Seattle, but I think that pass rushing ability was a little bit more coveted. Def 1 will be that leader there for the Rams. I picked 84 for the Steelers. We've gone in the first round for Kool-Aid McKinstry. We love that. We've got Kool-Aid as well as Justin Fields. It's a pretty nice 1-2 punch. We still need interior offensive line at center, and I really like Drake Nugent. I do. I think he is like almost as good, if not better, than what you have in Cedric Van Pran. So it's that or a linebacker, and we haven't done jack to fix the center spot. So we're going to do so with Drake Nugent. At pick number 85 for the Houston Texans, we've gone after linebacker and Junior Colston, as well as defense interior with Byron Murphy II. Could even go Jeremiah Trotter and just fully rehaul, but not going to do that. I could actually look at wide receiver here. And Roman Wilson actually is that nice hybrid of between the roles of Collins as well as Dell. Like Roman Wilson could be a really dynamic weapon on the squad. So, in fact, I'm actually going to draft Roman Wilson there out of Michigan. He's a very talented player, just had a little bit of reliability issues, and he's a good guy. He's a good guy, really good player. Pick 86 for the Browns. We went after defensive interior in round number 1. Or round number 2, excuse me. Round number 3, wide receiver still. Brendan Rice actually is a really solid Donovan Peoples-Jones replacement that you traded away to Detroit. He is worth a selection because he's also great lineage. Pick 87 for the Dallas Cowboys. We went after center. This pick, I think a tackle like Blake Fisher is worth developing and trying to move him to left tackle. This is where you can start taking some big projects. I am going to respect that. We're going to go Blake Fisher. So now we got our star defensive interior, star center, and now star tackle. Pick number 88 for the Green Bay Packers. This is going to be a running back. So we went offensive line, we went corner, and we have gone after a safety. This is probably going to be Audric Estime. He fits everything the Packers ever really want in a running back, which might not be exactly what the Packers are looking for as a one guy do it all, but the Packers would not be pissy at all to be able to get a great talent in Audric Estime, 94 PFF grade this past year. At pick 89 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm getting a little bit impatient here, and I'm debating making a move up. So looking at the choices available, like you still have Jalen McMillan here and Malachi Corley. Like there are some teams that are really trying to get that move up and select their guy. One of those teams is the Atlanta Falcons. I know that would be an in-division trade, but in-division trades are happening every single year now, like especially like some pretty bigger ones. So I do think this is not out of the realm of possibility. I kind of wish I waited with the Eagles to get their wide receiver 3, even though technically it's much worse value since I love Jermaine Burton a lot. It would have been great to get Malachi Corley here. I am going to move up. I am going to move up here with the Atlanta Falcons because it's a super short range trade. It will end up costing pick 142, but I mean, I think that it might be able to squeeze back pick 255 in return just to keep the quantity of picks equal. So they end up moving up only a couple spots and end up selecting their star receiver in Jalen McMillan to pair him up with their beloved Rome Odunze. It's a nice little 1-2-3 punch. Yes, you still need to get your quarterback, but we'll still be able to have that pick 96 or 98, whatever, which one it was. Pick number 90, though, for the Cardinals. We've gotten corner, defensive interior, offensive tackle, wide receiver, trying to see if I missed anything. We got center. Now we're going to actually look at running back here. I love Marshawn Lloyd. You can go Blake Corum. You can go Jonathan Brooks here. Can't really go wrong. I'm going to go after the highest ceiling player at the running back position in Marshawn Lloyd. I think he brings the explosiveness that backfield doesn't have at the moment. Pick 91 for the Green Bay Packers. Linebacker with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. does intrigue me. We've gone after running back. We've gone after safety, corner, as well as offensive tackle / interior offensive line. Could see Austin Booker here being good depth. Safety-wise, though, you could also try to be able to get someone like Jayden Hicks, Bo Braid. Not really there yet with them. I'm not a huge fan of Javon Bullard either, I got to admit. Defensive interior-wise, I mean, Dwayne Carter, McKinley Jackson, those dudes also bring some good juice to the team that you can add into that rotation. And honestly, I probably would take McKinley Jackson next. So I'm going to actually take McKinley Jackson as almost an FU there to the Lions. Lions, we've drafted a corner as well as an edge rusher so far. Without being able to draft McKinley Jackson, which would have been my next move, I am actually going to go interior offensive line with Christian Mahogany. Y'all's deep dive is actually going to be coming in very, very soon. Ultimate draft guide for y'all. Christian Mahogany is a dream selection for you, but that's not the player I ended up getting in the mock draft, the 7-round mock draft for y'all. Pick number 93 for the Baltimore Ravens. We've drafted wide receiver as well as running back. Now is a good time to try to take one of those versatile defensive backs. Chris Abrams drained Kalen King. I actually really like Kalen King. I think this is a good spot for him to have a redemption arc and he could potentially play some reps at safety as well. This is worth taking the risk. We're going to go Kalen King out of Penn State. At pick 94 for the San Francisco 49ers, we've drafted corner as well as a right tackle. And we could end up going after an edge rusher here. You got Marshawn Kneeland and Austin Booker still on the board, who both those guys I'm big fans of. I think Marshawn Kneeland actually could be kicked to the inside because he's a big dude with a lot of power. And this could be a longer term investment. So maybe you end up bringing back Chase Young, but you still end up having an absolute freak show in Marshawn Kneeland at 275 on your roster. Pick 95 for the Buccaneers, we are actually going to look at edge rusher here. And, I still like Austin Booker a lot. This does feel like a team that could be going after Austin Booker. And after a really strong Senior Bowl week, that's exactly what they do. They've gone after offensive line and edge rusher now as well. And then what did we end up doing in round number 2? I just looked at it too. Ended up going after wide receiver / tight end. Of course, back-to-back picks with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're actually going to go Jeremiah Trotter Jr. here. We need linebacker help. So we just fixed all of our positions with great value, and that is exactly what you want to do. At pick 97 for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I actually might be looking at another linebacker here in Tommy Eichenberg. He's definitely more that off-ball linebacker, but still in that 230 to 240 range that Vic Fangio does love. We could look at one of those boundary corners, but too many dudes on the roster at the moment. Could try to develop Javon Foster, but he's a little bit too old. I would say a day 3 target would be Roger Rosengarten. Just consistent tackle there on a potential championship level team. Could look at defensive interior as well, but I just doubt it. I still really want Malachi Corley to this team so badly. Could actually end up developing Mason Smith. You do end up having a couple dudes up for a contract. Would not be a bad move. Michael Hall Jr. as well. Great player. Just so tough to fit everybody into these mock drafts. It really is. I could actually end up trading out here. And I think that might be what I do. Javon Bullard still on the board, but I just am not a big fan of Javon Bullard. I'm really not. It's unfortunate, but I'm just not. The defensive interiors do need to come off the board eventually, but I really want Malachi Corley the most to come off the board. So we are actually going to be making a trade here with a team that is looking for a slot wide receiver or just somebody to make a difference. I think Carolina should get a little bit aggressive here. Damn, they have no picks. Keep forgetting that. They have nothing. It's actually quite sad. It really is. The Chargers, I'm pretty sure we actually ended up targeting. We have not targeted a receiver for them. This is a perfect opportunity to get a really good wide receiver for the Chargers. I think sending a future 5th round pick might be a little bit more of Howie's speed. You could technically take a future 4th, but that's a little bit risky. We actually send New Orleans 7th rounder in return. That could end up making a little bit more sense. Maybe even sending back that 6th round pick just so we can end up getting and filling that 4th round gap. Feel free to do that own negotiating on your own. But the Chargers actually end up moving up to select their receiving weapon there in Malachi Corley. He is a top 64 player on my board. Again, poor man's Rashee Rice. I think he'll play a really, really good role there for Harbaugh. At pick number 98 for the Atlanta Falcons. So we've already gone after 2 wide receivers and 2 edge rushers. This is where we will go after a quarterback. Spencer Rattler has a ton of talent. Still don't believe in him as a leader. I think Michael Pratt actually could be the guy to test out at the QB position. Pick 99 for the Buffalo Bills. Already went after defensive back and wide receiver. Triple checking that I did that. We did with Newman. So I actually will be going defensive interior here. And you got a ton of really good options. Michael Hall's a fun one. I'm actually going to go after Christian Boyd. I think he's going to be one of those the Bills are willing to take small school guys. He has shown unbelievable power and really good timing, and I think that he deserves the spotlight. Pick up 100. We have 101 picks now. Damn, I said picks 33 to 100. But at pick number 100, the Rams, I think Braden Fiskey and the other defensive interiors deserve their own spotlight as well. I'm actually going to go Dwayne Carter because he has shown the ability to truck over interior offensive linemen onto their asses, and that is something I really do appreciate. And last but not least, at pick 101, we have the Washington Commanders. We went after edge rusher. We went after multiple tackles. We went after a quarterback. And at this pick, we could end up trading back, but I think that, I mean, we're not going to go after another offensive tackle. I could actually go after Zach Zinter here to play the guard role. I just doubt they go and draft that many in terms of interior offensive or offensive linemen in general. This actually might be the trade out spot. I always trade out with them, and that's just because I don't really believe that they have proper value at this point. Could end up getting a team to move up for Spencer Rattler here, though. The teams that might want to develop a QB, like the Patriots already got their guy. This could be good for the Buccaneers. They did a little trade back. They could try to trade back up here. Not many teams, though, that would be really in the market to bring on a QB. Denver Broncos. This wouldn't be a bad trade back or trade up for the Broncos to try to develop their own guy. For a 14 spot jump, I think pick 146 is adequate. So we are going to push that trade through. The Broncos end up moving up and selecting Spencer Rattler, where my personal opinions on how Spencer Rattler has treated my own friends, but I always give people second, third, fourth, or fifth chances, and it looks like he might be on the up. So got to show them some love there. Obviously, the talent has never been a question, but that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching and showing the support that you always do. See you on the far side.